Aloha. With this video, I wanted to briefly summarize my perspective on the Jussie Smollett stuff that's going on. I don't know too much about it at all, but I don't really need to know the details about the situation to know what's going on. From my perspective of how I see how this is, because it's meant to affect. It's this stuff that's presented by the mainstream media, just like the Behind the Curve documentary, is shared to the people for an effect. So the people who are going to emotionally attach themselves to the mainstream media without going to the depths of what it really means are going to be subjected to it. It's going to affect them in some kind of way. It's going to have an effect, just like some kind of prescription drug or some kind of lacing a drug. So your consciousness has been laced by this colonial mentality. For one example, it's more complex than that, but for this example, I just wanted to keep this in mind because the first time I heard of this was, I think somebody on YouTube did it. I just talked about it and I never looked at it because it was just another one of those hashtag things. I was going to wait until it all, just like I usually do, wait until all the dust settles and then we see what's going on. So one video, you have people saying that he was framed. You have another video saying, so to briefly put what I know about it, this guy supposedly faked a hate crime and it got the LGBT community and the so-called black community angry. Because now, so if that doesn't seem at all staged, then I don't know what is. Not to mention the fact that this was mentioned and joked about on Saturday Night Live. So there's another kind of addition to this. So I'm just putting up all these different perspectives so you can see like what all this is tying to. So the conscious, so-called conscious community, truther community, they're all over it, you know, trying to break it down, talk about what it is. Another guy, Pockets of Future, says, you know, Cardi B says Jussie Smollett is possibly being framed by the police. So that's, you know, another thing that's getting thrown out there by the mind control system. So you have every angle. On the mainstream side, it discredits any kind of in conversations approaching the cancer itself. And like I've been saying in previous videos, only focuses on the reactions. So like one of the deeper conspiracy theorists, like this guy, Pockets of the Future, like he sees this and then he says, okay, I'm gonna approach it from my, you know, my lifestyle. So he breaks down what Jussie did from like the traumatic experience, or from the turn this on, from the perspective of like abuse, reactionary abuse to something that's fucked up. So anyway, the image that you're looking at is the origins of this. It's a response to, anyway, before I get there, let me go into explaining like the effect of this storyline on multiple layers of consciousness. So you see the mainstream media that is affected by this. You see how it's, you know, creates all this angst and whatever. Anyway, beyond that, it downplays the so-called truther community in many different ways and focuses the information on something that's not really it's not, I'm not saying this is a non-issue. I'm saying the way it's being approached is a non-issue because it's not addressing the cancer. The cancer is the reaction to this system overall. So, for example, the mainstream media pushes this information from like Saturday Night Live to give them like the extreme kind of like to give the mainstream like any kind of credibility in any kind of way. I never want to do this, but for example purposes, to give the mainstream media some kind of credibility into this, observing this storyline, not to mention the fact that it put this storyline out there. But to emphasize my point, that perspective, that reactionary perspective, is at best maxing out at an understanding. That understanding now exists within a mind control program. Obviously, that mind control program is being controlled by the people who created the story anyway. So, put that on the shelf, leave it there. Beyond that, the people or the entities or the thing that created this storyline in the physical realm, in that psychological mind control program, relationship, is keeping you, the way you focus your energy on that understanding is designed to keep you from activating the information based upon understanding and overstanding. See, the macro storyline and the internal macro and the internal micro storyline that exists inside of every single person is not being acknowledged because we have been sucked in to the distraction realm that is locking us into this fake understanding of reality. So every single, like, this is just a false flag for like the truther community, the Jussie Smollett stuff. So yeah, these individuals, like one guy, okay, and this also ties into like the image that you're looking at right now. There has to be a focus on the race, especially when they are not white. Do you look at look at television, when so-called not white people do something wrong, they get hit way harder from every angle than any other kind of white person. Like the image that you're looking at right now, this is a normal thing. This happens all the time. This guy was shot 6 times and they used his mugshot to create a certain mentality in your world about what you think about so-called black people, and to be more specific, so-called not white people. And then on the other image, this woman killed a man, and they used the lighter image, like, oh, this is her selfie, to make her look a certain way. This is the cancer behind the Jussie Smollett bullshit that's being put out there. The same consciousness that created this, and this is not new. The image that you're looking at right now, this is not new. So like the attack. So look at the attacks that's going on right now. Yeah, obviously this guy's a piece of shit for doing what he did, if he did what he did. Like I said, I haven't gone into the story to give a shit about the details because I know the reaction is what the system wants. The reaction, the controlled reaction that is happening on Saturday Night Live, the truther community, it's all designed to keep, the deeper storylines expanding. So it's on purpose. And if you do not challenge yourselves to go deeper than the reactionary perspectives, then you will eventually fall into either the original plan that the system had or the contingency plan that the system had for you to fall in. So this is why I'm saying that my approach to this whole storyline is to get to the the core of the cancer as quickly as possible, to realize that the consciousness of the individual and society as a whole is being played on purpose. And even the so-called truther community is not even really going to the depths of how and why this shit is going down. It's still getting itself caught up in the intricacies of what's being promoted by the system. We're not breaking down overall. We're not really breaking down how this system works. This is a side effect to the social media world in the human, or in the consciousness reality. It creates this idea that makes the information promoted by the mind controllers more important than your interpretation of the information put out by the mind controllers, because it creates this whole sort of look at me scenario. And you get that dopamine. So it's just like it's like a masturbation sort of dopamine hit. And instead of challenging ourselves to go to the depths of what you know, why that relationship has to be, or why that relationship has been. If we don't go that far, then we will constantly be caught up in the washing machine of reactionary storylines put out there by these mind controllers. So obviously, is what this guy did, if it's not at all like, if he's not just like a CIA agent that did it on purpose, which is totally another thing. It's all, I mean, you think if the system can do false flags with groups and groups of people, you don't think they can do it with one person? Okay, so if it's, this is about the effect. That's the whole point. So anyway, so you got the mainstream media, you got the comedy people in there, you got the truther community, their conscious community in there. Everybody's got their swords out, their weapons out, you know, attacking this storyline from their own perspective. But we fail largely to address the cancer. And that's pretty much why I didn't really get involved in any of these storylines, because it's just a bunch of another bullshit storyline to distract you from why and how this stuff exists in the first place. So instead of addressing the cancer of which you're looking at right now, like how the system has been doing the Jussie Smollett thing since its infancy forever against a certain people. The system itself is the Jussie Smollett. The establishment, the colonial reality, is the Jussie Smollett of the whole world. If that's how you pronounce his name, I don't know. But this is what's not being said. You can shrink it down, and the more you shrink it down to, like, you go from the world to the United States to like the epicenter of these mind control programs, the closer you get to that, the more you realize that this is all an orchestrated thing that's happening. And what it does is it also gives the system this artificial defense, like it's an artificial shield. So now it can deify itself in front of the people by making it look like it's spreading some kind of benevolent truth. So since this case rallies all these people together on Saturday Night Live against this, you know, piece of shit asshole who is taking advantage of the real hate crimes that are happening to real people, he you know, people rally behind him instead of addressing the issue of hate crimes in the first place. Where the fuck did a hate crime come from? Where are all the smart psychologists that are in the university system that are, you know, that are got all these awards or all these different kinds of, are there kind of like really, really deep ass psychologists out there in the world that are known, like movie star type psychologists or something? Is that a thing out there that could really start breaking down the psychology of this system and how the mainstream is designed to affect us? I don't have a psychology degree. My dad had a psychology degree when he was alive, and I didn't even live with him, but myself, I took like a couple of psychology classes, but I imagine if I had a PhD in psychology, I'd be destroying this shit. I would break this down so deep. But, you know, where the fuck are these people at? They're silent. And even beyond that, like I was explaining to my family just last night, the education system is not an education system at all. It's a deactivation program. This is what I was explaining to them. The first 3 years of school puts you at 7 years old. 5 in kindergarten, 6 in first grade, second grade, you're 7 years old. That's your third year, your third cycle, your third so-called cycle of the sun around the universe. So your third time going around this realm. That's why I said time is tied into your relationship to this reality. So on the third time of you doing something on purpose and being indoctrinated, that's when it sinks in. That's why, I just realized this just last night, this is why at between 5 and 7 or 5 and 8 years old, actually more like between like 6 to 9, between 6 and 9 years old, that's when you're really losing your dreams. And you're not losing your dreams, you're just replacing them with the reality of the undead, which is the education system. So we accept this, and we're accepting our own downplaying of our potential. So our true potential, outside of reacting to this, this garbage consciousness we call, this colonial reality, to be focusing on it. It's more complex than that, but to focus on like the intention of why these stories exist in the first place. That's what we're not addressing. The empire, the power itself. If the power can keep playing storylines that make it out to be the good guy in the story, then what the fuck what are we talking about here? This is, so another thing of this is the way this guy is out there. Look at how Bill Cosby is being crucified. And this is not to give Bill Cosby a pass or anything. I don't know anything about that dude or anything like that. I'm just using him as an example of how the system uses him as an example of like, oh, this is what black people are all about. Ultimately, that's what it is. When you're watching the movies that, make so-called black people look all fucked up and gangsters and all this other stuff, and it makes like the gods of Egypt are white people, like Ben Affleck or some shit, like, I don't know, Jake Gyllenhaal is one of the gods of Egypt. So what they're telling you is this ties into the other story of like Owen Benjamin, Alex Jones, and Joe Rogan telling you that white people are statistically smarter than black people. This is that. So the way they got to that mentality was by, their ancestors telling you back in the day that they're smarter. And where'd they get the IQ shit from? The university system, so on and so forth. So the same effect that the Bill Cosby shit has on you is the same effect that, Joe Rogan, Alex Jones, and Owen Benjamin talking about how, that racist shit, it's acceptable. It's creating a consciousness. It's trying to stamp a consciousness in. So by Joe Rogan and Alex Jones and Owen Benjamin saying that shit, they're actually more racist and more deeply mind controlling than this Jussie Smollett shit. It's a more complex system. Joe Rogan and Owen Benjamin like intelligently explaining to your subconscious and to a bunch of these, empty ass subconscious individuals that black people are dumb, like by their nature. They're dumber than white people by their nature. That is way more of a more fucked up perspective than, or energetically a fucked up scenario than this bullshit, false flag, Jussie Smollett shit. But we don't talk about that. And the reasons why a lot of people don't talk about that is because these distractionary storylines are put out there for us to consume ourselves with. Like this Jussie Smollett shit. And then you have these very intelligent truthers out here who are going to pride themselves in the way they interpret this information. And then it's not going to go anywhere. They're just going to echo chamber themselves into a dopamine ceiling of, they're going to get that little hit, that little, oh yeah, I did it, that one little thing. So that's just what keeps happening over and over and over again. So people keep masturbating with the truth instead of actually creating some universal energies with perceiving this information. So people get this. This is what happens in the truth community, and especially the flat Earth community is the same thing. You keep getting, you get attached and addicted chemically to like masturbating to the truth, and you don't produce any kind of, right, Kenya? You don't produce any substance, any kind of, you don't birth anything from the inside out. That's the thing. The social media, YouTube, Facebook information way of interpreting and sharing this information, yeah, Kenya, all that stuff is the masturbation for your consciousness. It's the masturbation of consciousness. And like I said in the previous videos, for the people who are new to this stuff, energetically, check out the NoFap videos that I've done to know more deeply. They're linked in the description here. Energetically, our so-called sexual energies, our reproductive energies, the orgasm and that relationship to your mind, your brain, your dopamine, that whole thing, that is, and how you get nothing, you feel empty, and then you have the realm of the system itself, like the porn industry through the internet. The most of the stuff on the internet is porn. So the max of your potential, your creative energies is channeled into a substanceless system, a broken, empty system that appears to have the same effect on you and your reality through that momentary dopamine drip that you get from that that orgasm, or whatever that is. So people are having all these truth-gasms and these like conscious gasms from talking about this information, but let's get caught. Never really reproducing anything of a nature that is outside the consciousness that created these problems in the first place. It's all just baseline stuff, because and that's why I said that's why it's so effective, because the same way masturbation is such an effective addiction thing like cocaine, and because it's not about the external thing, it's about the internal effect on you. So this is why food is so effective as far as like addiction stuff, and then drugs are effective as addiction stuff, sex is addictive as addiction stuff, because it's directly related to your core. So you have like your reproductive energies, obviously with sex addiction, food, you got to eat to live, you got to have food to feed your kids. You have a relationship with food from your childhood. So you got your food, you got the alcohol, that's tied up with the relationships with your friends and family. Like it makes you relax, it takes you down out of this bullshit, and it's all glorified on television. These are all designed to lock you into a particular vibration within a particular universe. So what the system does is it doesn't tell you about how fucked up the universe is. It doesn't tell you about the history of the universe. It doesn't tell you about the algorithms and the alchemy designed to fuck you over of the universe. No. It gets you distracted by the vibrations pumped out by the universe. So as long as you keep subjecting yourself to the vibrations pumped out by the universe because you haven't challenged yourself to address the universe itself, then you will be trapped. That's the trap of the system. That's what it's designed to do. And the truther community and the conscious community and the so-called flat earth community is falling right for it. And since the flat earth community fell for it, what did the system do? It used only the people who fell for it, who fell for that reactionary program. It used them as their examples to sell the next agenda. Why? Because they were the ones in this whole flat earth community that were so enveloped by the reactionary consciousness, by the mind control, that they didn't even see. And even if they did see what was going on, they didn't care. They didn't have enough consciousness to care about what was going on because they didn't have enough intelligence to really know. This is giving them the benefit of the doubt that, you know, that they're not complete pieces of shit and knew exactly what they were doing, like working for that program. So this is giving them this is the best case scenario for them. So anyway, this is how the story works. Just like the Truther community is talking about Jussie Smollett right now, the mainstream community use those individuals like, so like let's say if the mainstream community wanted to do a documentary on dumbass truthers, it would gather all these truthers off the internet and create a behind the curve based upon truth instead of just flat earth. So this is what's happening right now with social media on the whole. It's gathering all this information on these so-called intelligent beings, so later on it can demonize the individuals on the whole. And then, you know, whatever numbers that they get, they're going to be okay with that. So I wanted to emphasize this before I close this video out. This is the main thing, like I was saying. The individuals who are just so trapped in that mind control program, they are the ones that will be used to sell the next mind control. So this is why the truthers are being used through Owen Benjamin, Joe Rogan, Alex Jones, you know, Mark Dice, you know, all these other individuals are out there. They're designed to catch you, to trap you in the not really knowing what's going on outside the consciousness that created the problem in the first place. They intellectualize, they do the legwork, like I was saying about the Mark and Patricia in reference to flat earth. They do the work, they do the science work for them. They put the perspectives out there for you. They tell you what the main issues are for you. They do, and it's not for you, it's to you. So like when Mark Sargent says, we have to focus on the main issues of flat earth, he's saying that he's an authority on what the main issues are. And that shuts down everybody else's reality or ability to go any further than what he says we should be doing. And then they defend it. They make it worse when they defend it and say the people who are talking about all this other stuff, they're the ones who are threatening flat earth. And then they make you the bad guy when you're actually going to a deeper perspective of what the fuck they're talking about. And nobody even until 3 years later when the fucking shit came on Netflix. Oh, now we see what you're talking about. Get the fuck out of here. This shit ain't new. This shit been broken down. Way over 3 years ago. This is how this system works. This is how it's designed. It's meant to be this way. And every other story that gets put out there is just another false flag, another intricate version of a psychological false flag. And then you have all these very intelligent truthers who are out there doing the legwork for the mainstream community because they're not realizing that it's the system itself. It's not the stories that the system puts out. It's the system itself and how the system has the authority to put these stories out in the first place. If we don't break it down from there, we're going to fall for anything. Just the same thing like, okay, so the system putting this story out, what's the benefit to the system? Well, just like the Civil Rights Act, it waters down in the Civil Rights Act. It waters down your approach. It waters down your perspective. It waters down your ability to move forward from a deeper consciousness to address the actual cancer and not the side effects of the cancer. You're not even allowing yourself to go to the depths of the storyline because you don't know what the depths of the storyline are. You only know the intricacies of the depths of the storyline which the system is designed to keep you within. And since you're maxing out at the consciousness within the system's consciousness, you think you're a fucking god of truth in that shit now. So they get on social media and say, hey, look, we have the deeper perspectives of what's going on. And this is what we should be paying attention to, not realizing that it's just another false flag that's designed, like I said, like the civil rights movement and all that other stuff. So back then, the combining of the so-called women's rights movement and the LGBT movement back in the 60s was designed to keep you from, it was designed to water down the entire approach to the colonial system by distracting you from the colonial storyline and selling you this whole human, we're all one, we're all the ones persecuted. This is why I keep saying this shit. And then people say, and then people are doing the same thing that happened back in the 60s. They're attacking me in the comment section saying, we're all human, we're all one, we're all slaves, we're all struggling. That's the same shit that happened back then. That's exactly what this program wants you to do. I'm not saying we're not all struggling. I'm not saying we're not. I'm saying that there's an actual attack on a specific people that is being hidden, that is designed on purpose to keep you from addressing the core of the empire. Because now they're just going to say, yeah, you know what? We are all one. Let's just have a one world government and unify under this international human organization of peace, sustainability, and unity and all this other bullshit. Whatever the United Nations or whatever that system is going to put out there. That's the intention. And people are doing the same thing today. So when I'm saying address the system of colonialism, the power grid itself, people saying, you're racist. I'm saying, no, I'm powering people up to address this, not even from the 2019 perspective. We haven't even realized, we haven't even learned from our mistakes in the 60s. Let alone learn from the mistakes that happened here in like 2001 and 9/11 and all this. We don't even learn from that shit. We're still dealing with the mistakes that were fucked up back in the civil rights movement time frame. We haven't even comprehended that shit. And now people, just like the move on mentality happens within this whole truther shit. But now you have people defending, not looking at deeper parts of the story of all what's going on. You're racist for doing this. I'm saying, no, the system wants to water down your power, and the biggest power movements of the biggest power people around the world, it wants to slow it down by watering it down. So if they combine the movement of the LGBT movement and the women's movement, then they can control the dialogue. If they control those with the so-called black movement, which is the indigenous people's movement of the world against colonialism. It's not the black power movement. It's the indigenous people's movement, or like that's the deeper perspective of the civil rights time frame back then and what's happening now. Not to put any labels and all that other shit, but just to, for example purposes, the way the system controls you is by saying, yeah, it's the black power movement, and they're combined with the fucking women's movement and the damn LGBT movement. And when they say that, they can control the dialogue. So then they just put their perspectives on Saturday Night Live, the newspapers, the radio, the television, the talk shows, the movies, the cartoons. They put it in all those streams of consciousness that regurgitate it, vomit it, and sell it back to you. And then you say, yeah, kinda. And then that yeah, kinda is your truth forever, because you're hopelessly attached to this system through your basic human needs or your basic resources. I don't want to say human needs, your basic needs for this reality. And since that is the case, then, you feel okay with you feel like a superhero for addressing the superpower. From the linear perspective of just barely interpreting the Jussie Smollett stuff or any of this false flag stuff. It's not the false flag itself that's the problem. It's the authority and the intelligence behind why you need a false flag in the first place and what the false flags are protecting. That's the fucking problem. But these individuals are still stuck in the mind control program of, anyway, what's attractive, and that whole thing. It's not about that. That's how the system works. This is why they put the image that you're looking at right now. This is why these images are put out, because it's an attractive, it affects you on a dopamine level, on a conscious level, on a subconscious level, unconscious level. This stuff affects you many different ways. So you leave your house thinking in your head, like, you see any black person, you see their mugshot. You see any white person, you see their selfie. This is why this stuff is on the news every single day. And then when I say that this exists, people call me racist for saying that this exists, instead of addressing or attacking the fucking problem in the first place. Why would you attack somebody, a basic individual, a fucking, just a regular ass dude who ain't got shit? As far as, you know, like this whole success realm of, you know, wealth and all this other stuff. Nah, regular ass motherfucker. Look at this shit. Look at this shit. Instead of going at the cancer that is the intelligence, the consciousness that creates the reasons why they show you mugshots for certain individuals and selfies for others, the intelligence and the psychology that created that is not new. It's been around for a long time. Why isn't that being called racist? Why isn't that being approached? That could take years and years and years to interpret. But no, these so-called truthers and shill spotters, these are lazy-minded motherfuckers who take the easy route out. Instead of doing the internal work, they want to just take the quick dopamine drip of fucking with an individual instead of challenging the system from the internal perspective. Simple-minded, shallow approach truther motherfuckers. This is what's happening right now. This is the biggest governor of actual conscious movement. Nothing really happens. I'm not saying you have to have a movement, or I'm talking about energetically. Moving of intelligence, moving of consciousness. You can see it on an individual level. Now see it on a macro level. See it on a social level. The reasons why a lot of this stuff isn't happening is because we are consuming. Instead of using our creative energies for attacking the cancers that create these false flags, we're okay with the masturbatory orgasm dopamine drip that comes from just regurgitating a barely intelligent perspective of a barely intelligent reactionary perspective of the false flag itself. Since that is acceptable, so this is why that's acceptable, because the system sets the bar so low by putting it on Saturday Night Live and these mainstream TV channels and these midstream media channels, comedy channels and late night talk shows. They make it more like, oh, this is something to talk about. It's put out there for you to attach yourself to it, instead of the way it was designed to affect you. And since the majority of people are not even aware that there is an it that is designed to affect us, anybody who's talking about the it, they are the ones who are going to seem like super smart, intelligent people. This is why a lot of these truthers who are out there have to focus on the reactionary storylines, because that's their demographic now. That's what they have to do. So it's a trap. People trap themselves in these storylines. Now I'll link it back to Flat Earth again. It's the same thing. It's easy to see that. These are traps. It's a trap to keep you in a particular consciousness, because like I said in all these previous videos, it's not about the information itself. This system is about stealing your time. Time stealers. The more time the system steals from you, the more chances that the entities within the system have through the gaps in your reality to experience this reality outside of your ability to even attach, like get into breaking down what this reality is about. It's a lot of yeah, anyway, it's way more complex. I mean, that's pretty much like the waiting room of the information in reference to how complex this system is. But that's what how I wanted to approach this Jussie Smollett shit, because that's how I saw it, and that's how I see it now. And that's pretty much all that needs to be said about it. Any more details that come up about this situation are going to be, moot in pertaining to why the situation exists in the first place. And then compare this, like the image that you're looking at, to all the other images right now. So just like Jussie is being attacked, and this is not to give him a pass or anything like that. What I'm saying is that instead of addressing the instigators or the creators of false flags, the system wants you to focus on demonizing an individual so-called black man. That's the polar opposite of addressing the cancer itself. It's really fucking intelligent. It's extremely intelligent. This is, and just think of this in reference to last ditch scenarios for this system. Energetically, what would it have to do? It would have to take the focus away, completely away from it, and demonize the opposite side to make them. So they made Jussie look like the worst, white person in reference to mind controlling or fucking with people. Because this is where this comes from. So-called white people used to do this legally. This is how they used to kill people back in the day, by these false accusations on so-called black people. So why is it such a big surprise that it's happening now? It's not. He's just doing what the system has been doing to us forever. Lying and fucking with us and then demonizing us to, So anyway, this is the same. So instead of us addressing how the system has done this and where this shit comes from, what happens? People start making hashtags and attacking this dude, and then, other sides saying justice for Jussie, and other people saying, like jail for Jussie, like all this other. So this is the Hegelian dialectic in real time. This is how the Hegelian dialectic works. Because people are so chaotic, they're in that space of not being able to think for themselves, emotionally triggering storylines that are anchored in the extremes of what is good and what is not good. Like what is, I don't want to say good and bad or good and evil, because it's more complex than that. But that's what the system of duality that's being amplified and emphasized wants to keep you trapped in. Good and evil. The superhero and the villain. This is what all these cartoons and movies are for. So you have people saying, and both of them are fucking wrong, because they're giving the authority to the system. Put this person in jail. No, we need to, do this or other. So anyway, whether it's, defending him or anybody else is no, never mind, or persecuting somebody else is no, never mind, is because this is what the system wants you to do. It wants you to trap yourself in getting consumed by the intricacies of the false flag itself, instead of addressing the authority of the false flag intelligence in the first place. I'll leave it there. That's basically what it boils down to as of now from this perspective. So thank you for joining me, and until next time, from all my relations, peace, love, and harmony.